Feb 12th, episode 15? Is this episode 15? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
and this is the Valentine's Day episode.
Oh, yes, okay, so we're gonna do something about I didn't even think about it. Oh my god, I need to do something for my wife.
You haven't ordered flowers?
So, here's the fun story. Our anniversary is on Feb 8th, which was last week. So we celebrated
Mm,
our 15th anniversary, so I did get her flowers for that. And I'm kind of
congrats.
just thinking that the Valentine's Day is going to be sort of almost a non-event as a result, but maybe that's a bad assumption. So I'm going to go buy some flowers tomorrow. All right,
Just
welcome
gotta
back, everybody, to GTMN.fm. I'm excited about this one. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about, Austin, but I actually want to start with, did you read this post on, okay, you definitely did not read this. It's gone super viral on X, and
Yeah,
that's
it was
why
on
I know
X, I
you
didn't
haven't
read
read it.
it.
Exactly. By Matt Schumer. And this post is all about, it's titled, Something Big is Happening. It's
Oh, I
like,
got sent this. Layla, my wife sent this to me.
all right, okay, so you did see you did like come across it. It's just apparently something like like 50 million views. It might be up to like 100 million views by now. I don't know. And it's essentially just talking about how in the last this is somebody who's been building AI startups and investing in the space for the last 6 years. And the TLDR, if you don't read through everything, is like, hey, something big has happened since Feb 5th when both 4.6 and so this is Opus 4.6 and Codex 5.3 came out. And this is one person's perspective, and it is a little bit hyperbolic, but like the TLDR is like something massive has changed in how this person, Matt Schumer, views the ability of AI to do things on your behalf and how it's going to just basically change everything. And so big claims, and then there's a counterpoint to it, which is, yeah, but there's all these ways in which these tools don't really work as well as you think. And my take on this was, if you haven't read the post, first go read the post, because I think it's like it makes sense. It's a warning to anybody who's saying or who's thinking that this is not going to have an impact on your day-to-day work. And the call to action from this person is like, play with the tools, go buy a paid subscription, and make sure you don't get left behind, which I think is a good warning, right? It's like, if you were thinking that you don't need to adopt, the what's the best analogy for this, right? Like when spreadsheets got created, if you didn't become an expert in spreadsheets, you probably did get left behind to some degree, right? You need to have certain
Hmm.
amount of comfort with spreadsheets to operate in a modern sort of work organization. And I think the same thing is going to be true for all things AI. But I don't know. Did you have a chance to read through it? What do you think about these pieces, this piece or these pieces as they come out?
I did read through it, and sorry I didn't respond instantly to it. I'm not on X, but this was the first time I read like a long form piece on X, which I found really funny because I was like, isn't the whole point not to have long form pieces? So if this had been on Substack, I would have instantly responded. I think I'm of two minds. One is I think it's quite hyperbolic, but I don't think it's unfounded. One of the things that I keep thinking about is, and maybe he pinpoints it to this February 5th or February 6th incident, but I think a couple things for me have changed. One is I started using Claude Code based on a friend's recommendation. So I switched from Cursor and GPT to Claude Code.
Mm,
And, some observations. Claude Code's actual UI, the app, the desktop app, is fabulous. Like, I actually think it is better than GPT, in my opinion. The connectors actually work. I couldn't get MCP connectors to work with OpenAI, and maybe I just wasn't trying hard enough, but I set them up and was instantly able to query kind of anything I wanted across 10 or 20 different tools. But Claude Code in particular, I think, is pretty fabulous. Especially they released this idea of teams of agents. And again, I'm not pretending that I'm an AI expert, so I don't follow all the goss. Maybe this is kind of possible in other tools. And I know in Cursor you could have multiple agents. But the thing about it that is different is that it just was so easy. I built like an entire application, a full grade SaaS application, which I've shown you, in like a couple of days, basically just prompting teams of agents to go do work and pull in third parties for me.
nice.
Um, so I think like the thing that really is true about this is something big is happening for sure in software development. And I think a lot of software engineers are also kind of raising their hand and being like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Questions around what is the role of a software engineer anymore? How much should they be using AI to code versus review code? Should they actually be in the business of prompt engineering at this point to build really robust prompts that build high quality code for them? So I think the nature of software is really changing. There's just still so many people who like haven't figured out how to move beyond the kind of desktop or web interface. And to me, that seems like the gap between early disruptors and laggards and followers. 6 to 12 months ago, it was you're using ChatGPT in a console. 6 to 12 months before that, you're using ChatGPT on the web. Now it's I'm using ChatGPT or Claude Code or Cursor in my actual terminal. And
Mm,
this is where I think like there is a big gap between people who are able to kind of get the full extent of what AI can do and people who can't. Because if you can work in terminal and you can write in code and you can deploy
totally.
code to GitHub and you can spin up instances in GCP and Amazon, there's just like some baseline level of technical understanding where if you have it, what he's saying about something being big is happening is totally real. If you don't
Yeah.
have that baseline understanding, I think you're still then operating in Claude Code desktop app, for example, or even
Yeah.
just Claude desktop app, and your ability to automate things for yourself are still fairly limited. But I don't think that's going to be forever. And I actually think one thing that like will change this is when we have the idea that agents can plug into your actual desktop machine, like with Claude, Open Claude.
Yeah. Mm,
When, for example, Claude can sit on your desktop machine and have access to everything and can connect to a cloud-based system and can connect to a cron job and run autonomously. Now, Claude is your computer, is the cloud service, is your email, is everything else. And MCP servers make a lot more sense. And I don't think we're far off from that. I don't think we're far off from a world where you talk to Claude and then you have a repeated task and you ask to do it forever. That to
yeah.
me is actually the big gap right now is that like you can configure agents to run, but they still require some amount of manual input. And I think we're not too far from us being able to effectively set a cron job on an agent and to be able to plug that into our desktop machine. Again, you can do it right now with some engineering work, but I think like once the layman's can do that, then this something big is happening is definitely real.
Look at you, Austin. You're not a computer science major, right? You picked all this up just tinkering on your own.
I got really lucky, Pranav. I my first job was at a technical marketing company called Branch. So just by nature of the business, you're forced to understand how effectively
Right.
the web worked because
Right.
fingerprinting technology is pretty sophisticated and like if you understand how that works, you understand how the web works. And
Yeah.
then also this was when I was 24 years old. I sat next to our 19-year-old co-founder Dimitri and he just taught me how to code. And I
Nice.
had done like a coding academy before that, but like that first year at Branch sitting next to a 19-year-old genius learning how to program, that was enough, I think, to turn me over that edge. And I get this question all the time, especially in recruiting and hiring. How do you find more people who are technical in a non-technical discipline? And I still think like coding academies are great training grounds for these folks.
Yeah.
In fact, I've had like two or three customer success and solutions consultants that I've worked with multiple times in my career, and I keep coming back to them. They're both women because they took coding academies. So like they actually understand how the web works. And I
Yeah.
think if you understand how APIs in the web works, you don't have to be a world-class expert anymore.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I definitely think there's something big is happening is an accurate representation of what's going on. Every week that goes by, I just think about what's possible now, and at the same time, I have to remind myself that we are a little bit in an echo chamber that the average person out there may not have that same perspective because they haven't gotten exposed to some of the ways in which these tools can work. And the barrier to entry is still high in the sense that you have to pay, whatever, $20 a month or $100 a month. And that's not a trivial amount of money for somebody to throw down on, AI tools. Like we take it for granted. But so people should definitely play with it. And it still has a long way to go and grow. But it's an exciting time. All right. I don't know why we started there, but I had to start there with that post. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl ended last week. Well, happened last week. And we have some stats, and I have some like interesting stuff to talk to you about. So Average viewership was actually down by 2% from last year,
Wow.
124.9 million. However, peak viewership was high. It was an all-time record, 137.8 million, and this was in the second quarter of the show. I have a feeling this is the Bad Bunny effect, the halftime show. Everyone tuned in
Mm,
for that in
mm.
the second quarter, and then just kind of stayed on for the rest of the halftime show. Ad prices were up 15% from last year, so ranging for 30 seconds somewhere between 8 to 10 million. And
30
here,
seconds, 10 million.
bonkers, right? But you look at the
But
reach, right? 137
yeah,
million
you
people tuned in and paying attention. Um,
Mhm.
okay, here's the interesting stat: AI content in Super Bowl ads. 25% of all ads had some impact from AI. Either there were
Mm.
AI companies or there was AI being used in the production of the ads themselves, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't even know that was a stat, but 25%, and that was up 400% from last year apparently. Um,
And there were more versions of our Anthropic ad that we talked about last week.
that's right.
There were like
That
a
is
bunch of
right.
different variants of it.
Yeah. What did you think of the? Did you pay attention to the ads? What did you think? Like, did something stand out to you just in terms of what you liked or didn't like? Any commentary from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I'm just really proud that online, like over TV ads are not super lame. Cause you remember there were a couple of years, especially early with Apple TV and YouTube TV and stuff, where the ad set that you would get through that versus cable would be completely different. And you get like the weirdest ads on repeat if you were watching the game from Apple TV, but then you get all the good ads if you were watching from cable. And it was just like there were a couple years where it was just the saddest thing ever, and we saw the trend coming. Everybody's moving to Apple TV and to connected devices to watch television, but for some reason, they just, like, couldn't run that ad inventory on it, and so I'm actually really proud of everybody involved in getting normal ads back on Apple TV, so that's the first thing. I thought a lot of the ads were weird, like, they had that one
Yeah.
not to pick on Squarespace, but Squarespace had the, was
The
it Scarlett
horror,
Johansson? Yeah, and she's
the
like
horror one, right, where she was shocked. Was that the one you're?
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
it's
The
just like
whole. Yeah. It was weird.
it's
Yeah.
just weird. I'm like, I don't think about my domain name that much. You know?
And I don't think the average
Um,
person does either. It was a little bit overdone, maybe, but hey, kudos for giving it a shot. Apparently, that ad was designed completely in house. There was no agency involved.
no comment.
Okay, so few themes. Obviously, Anthropic had an ad. Google Gemini had an ad.
Pepsi had
Surprisingly,
an ad. Pepsi had an ad.
Pepsi had an ad. I'm talking about all the AI ones.
Okay.
Um,
Pepsi is in the
OpenAI.
AI game. AI Coke, okay, Pepsi.
Maybe. I don't know. Okay. And then OpenAI's ad was all about codecs. And I thought their ad this year was so much better than their ad last year. The one last
Yeah.
year was very abstract and like it was all about like, technology and the evolution of technology. And this time it was like it almost felt and all the commentary on the internet is about them teasing a glasses device because it was all from first perspective. Like you're looking into a screen and then you're like moving, and so it was trying to show you the perspective of a human being working through something. And then there was this. Did you come across the Reddit leak? Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
Some disgruntled OpenAI employee, I don't know if this is guerrilla marketing or not, made a post anonymously on Reddit saying that I'm very disappointed because the real ad that was supposed to be launched was about their new hardware product, and they killed it last minute because of all the attention the Claude ads were getting. It was something about something. And that ad got leaked. Somebody figured out how to take the image that this person put on Reddit and reverse engineered and found access to their agency's like FTP server and pulled the ad. And so that ad is out there now, and this is
Oh my
literally like
god.
a little device, and we should play it. I
Do
don't know
do
if
you think they
everyone.
used codecs to find it?
That would be funny. Oh my god! Right there. Okay. All right. This is apparently the real Super Bowl ad from OpenAI.
Oh my gosh.
is he doing? Did he check his teeth in the device at the end there? Is that what he did?
That was the whole ad.
That was the whole ad. Now, obviously, we know nothing about whether this is real, this is fake. There's no OpenAI, signage anywhere. It does feel like a very mysterious, ad. But yeah, apparently this is the ad that was originally supposed to play on the Super Bowl, which is wild. And then
It's like a sexy Raspberry Pi. That's
oh
literally
my
what it is.
God, that is hilarious. Sexy
But
Raspberry Pi.
seriously, like what? Let's can we talk about it for a second? Like what could a device do for us? What do you think a hardware device would do if you had OpenAI or Claude connected to this thing?
I mean, the idea seems to be that it's, both like spatially recording everything that's around you
Mhm.
and in the background. So it's not dependent on your laptop, it's not dependent on your mobile phone, it's not dependent on anything, right? So it's like independent and it records audio, it records video, it's basically your first perspective on your whole life. And it allows you then to act upon all of that context, right? So it's really real world context that is not available in any other device form factor because you have to interact with your laptop and your mobile and your, glasses and what have you. I don't know. So it's really just gathering all that context that today doesn't exist anywhere. Maybe.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I feel like we're almost there without needing a device though. Like the only things that aren't there are my private conversations, which I don't know if I would want. There are some things I wouldn't want in AI. Like, do you want
Yeah,
to have conversations with friends and your wife and your children in a third party tool?
it's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know.
I just like
It's
what's the value? You know, I mean, I can understand. So like, so you have this device, you carry it around. It simplifies the work part of it. Right now, I actually have all of my work conversations. I record every conversation with Granola or Clarify, and it goes into a giant warehouse. And I've also backloaded all my my pre-recorded Zoom conversations from like 2015 to 2020. You
wow.
know, I have recordings of stuff, so I have like 10 years of recording history from my professional life in a giant warehouse. So that solves it, right? Like you don't need to buy granola or a Zoom call anymore because you just have this thing on your desk and it connects to your calendar and it can probably figure out who's talking or whatever. So yeah, the only benefit is really like you walk around outside and it can have context from conversations outside of, the interface of Zoom or granola or whatever. And if I really need to record a conversation, I just pull up my phone and hit granola. I don't know.
I think there's something about the seamlessness, right? Where if the device is there, it's just doing it. You don't have to like interact with the tech. I have to imagine that's like what Johnny Ive is dreaming up. And
Sure.
you think about if you're having a dinner, don't take the device with you, right? Like there's also like a very elegant on-off switch here, which is like if you're not carrying the device, it doesn't do the thing that it's supposed to do. So
Think about the privacy implications, though. You know, we go to dinner and you're wearing that nice little flannel and you stick one in your little pocket there and record our dinner conversation without me knowing.
totally, totally. I mean, that's yeah. I just found it interesting that this got leaked on Reddit and somebody reverse engineered and figured out where it is, and now the video is on YouTube. I think
It
maybe
would
it
be
is guerrilla
so great
marketing.
if Codex did it. It would just be so funny.
I know. All right, couple of other things that happened at the Super Bowl. So, did you hear about this company AI.com?
They
Have you
own
heard
that
of
domain?
this? Yeah. Okay, so it's the founder
Wow.
of Crypto.com. So the guy who owns Crypto.com now has AI.com. And
Oh
so
my
they
god.
launched on Super Bowl day and they had an ad. And so you go to AI.com and it's like all about, I don't even know what the value prop is. And it
Claim your
crashed.
handle.
I don't know, man.
Claim your
It's like
AI.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the most generic. Okay, so that was interesting. And then I particularly loved Dunkin' Donuts ad. Did you see that?
I did, yeah. That was a good one.
G Goodwill Dunkin'? That was
Yeah.
hilarious, like, so well done.
So,
Um,
the other one that I saw that I really liked was with Taika Waititi. Do you know him? He, like,
no,
did,
I
he was part of What We Do with the Shadows, What We Do in the Shadows. He was also part of that show, I'm totally blanking on it, with, like, the gay pirate. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Pirates of the Caribbean?
Hold on.
No, what are you talking
No, not Pirates of the Caribbean. Not Pirates of Oh, yeah, it's called Blackbeard. Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, he was Blackbeard in Our Flag Means Death, that's what it was, I was just blanking on the name. But he's a hilarious guy, and he directed the commercial with Pepsi where the Coke bear does a taste test between Pepsi and Coke and picks Pepsi and then, like, loses his sanity, which I just thought was so funny.
Yes. Okay, so the one thing that I wanted to comment on with the Super Bowl is I went and did Google Trends searches for a lot of these ads
Mm.
and, specifically the AI one. So I did one for, looked at ChatGPT, looked at Claude, looked at Gemini. Guess what happened on the Super Bowl day when these ads ran? Nothing. There was zero movement on Google Trends. Like there was a little bit of a peak, and that peak was like basically, the same as the peak that happened last week or the week before with all the other stuff that they must be launching. So, these ads are great. We laugh, we have fun. Maybe they create memory, but like it's hard to move consumers with just Super Bowl ads. It is a hard, hard job.
Well, I guess, like, so thinking about this from an attribution perspective, not sorry, I feel like I'm always dragging you into questions because I think that
It's all
you're
right.
our
Yeah.
in-house expert and I love free advice. That's making the assumption though that everybody from the Super Bowl is kind of Googling what they see on the screen. But oftentimes people will just go directly to the source or they'll think of it later. So how do you actually separate that signal from the noise of the fact that, like, you might not see the attribution event for the Super Bowl right at some time period around the Super Bowl, unless it's like a very direct offer that people are searching for, right? Like, I'm not going to search for Pepsi after seeing the Tekka Wanted commercial, but I might just like go drink a Pepsi like soon because I haven't had a Pepsi in a really long time, and that reminded me that it exists. You know?
No, you're 100% right. This is just one way of looking at, if anything material happened. And it doesn't mean this is the only way you measure the effect of any type of advertising. You absolutely should be looking at your first party metrics and seeing if sales, signups, traffic, all that stuff moved in any way wherever you bought that media. And that's what we do for our customers. And a couple of our customers ran Super Bowl ads, which is also wild to me that we are working with customers who have, that type of budget. And the mistake that most people make is not doing the media buy in a way that you can actually run useful analysis on. And the Coke and Pepsi example is a great one. A lot of critics of that advertisement were saying that if you're Pepsi, you actually gave just the same amount of attention to Coke as you did to yourself. Right. So this
Yeah.
is usually the conflict with competitor ads. And
Yeah.
Claude did a good job because Claude never mentioned OpenAI in their ads
Hmm.
at all. So in some ways, like they're punching above their weight and doing it in a way that gets them the attention. So if I were buying any of these ads and if I were buying them for the first time, I would not run a national campaign. I would actually buy regional media. You can do that. Gong is famous
Mm.
to have done that in the B2B example where they only bought Sacramento and SF when they ran this in like what 2019 or 2020, something like that.
Hmm.
So it costed them like 300 grand, but they had very clear signal in terms of traffic and pipeline from those locations. So it worked really well for them. For a large brand like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or even Lay's, when you're not doing it for lift, you're doing this for like continuous sort of storytelling. And the one last piece that I would add is hopefully you're telling the same story across not just the Super Bowl day, but the month before and the month after. And so you think about sort of telling the story consistently and using those same assets in other channels and other sort of
Hmm.
forms of media to tell a fully sort of coherent end-to-end narrative. And then you can measure the impact of that because you're looking at lift over time. and in those time
Like
periods, and
like what Ramp is
yeah.
doing with their Brian campaign.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Yep. You got to tell a much, much broader story, and even then it's hard. But I just found it hilarious that none of the three AI companies saw any movement. Funnily though, if you go and search Google Trends for Instacart, the Instacart bananas ad, they did two things that were genius. One, it did actually move their metrics, so the Google Trends like massive spike for Instacart. And the second thing is the next time you open Instacart, you actually saw and you order bananas, you saw select the ripeness of your bananas. And so my wife saw it on the day after, and she was like, "Wait, they actually did this?" And I'm like, "So you see, like you have to tell the story more holistically, not just in media, but also like your product itself, and then it leaves a lasting impression." Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to add, but that was a fun little exercise on Super Bowl.
No, I love it. The Instacart stuff makes sense, especially given a delivery-minded application. It's funny. I think that, like, the reason why I liked Ramp's pre-cycle campaign and their post-cycle campaign is it's actually one of the first times, I think, in a long time that I've seen a software brand get into, like, true competitive brand storytelling. Like, think about Coke, for example. Everybody knew the Coke bear. Like, how many SaaS applications out there have a beloved character or story that you can recall
Mm.
and remind you of that brand? Almost zero. Like, I can kinda think of Salesforce, they have that weird chipmunk thing,
And
but
Matthew
it
McConaughey.
yeah, but it's not beloved.
I
I
know.
can't think of any brands that
Yeah.
have beloved characters, and so I think that's actually, like, some of the genius of it is that they found a character that was already beloved in Kevin from The Office, who's Brian, and since they obviously can't use Kevin from The Office, they're just branding around Brian, which is
Yep.
so smart.
Great strategy. Great strategy. Okay. Couple of other things from a news perspective that have happened. So there's a company called Liftoff. This is a complete segue. There's no connection.
Mhm.
Liftoff does,
I remember
I
Liftoff,
think,
yeah.
yeah, they're ad tech. They're valued at some like I think they're doing like maybe a 500 million in revenue. They're probably valued at like 5 billion or whatever. They were supposed to go IPO, and they shelved the IPO citing AI valuation uncertainty. So essentially, just very hard for them to get a good valuation in the public markets. And we all know we've seen like SaaS just take a nosedive in the public market. So Liftoff has shelved the IPO, which must be sad for them, but that's the nature of like what's happening in the market right now. It's a little bit nuts.
I
Um,
remember Liftoff from literally 2017 when they were just getting started. I think they're like a European brand, and so, like, congrats to them for getting to 500 million, but it just shows you the crazy nature of the world we're living in where that might not be enough.
that might not be enough. And then I looked at like who do they compete with? They compete with AppLovin, and AppLovin is valued at $150 billion. And I
Yep.
was like, wait, what? I had completely forgotten how big they have become, all on the
AppLovin is
backs of their
huge.
advertising product. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing. Couple of other pieces of news. Databricks surpassed 5.4 billion in revenue run rate, and an interesting thing. So they're not public, I don't think.
Mm. Not
Um,
yet. Not yet.
but I'm Oh, and
IPO coming.
they raised $7 billion, and they were talking about this concept of Lakehouse Genie. Such bad names. But Lakehouse Genie is a natural language interface for asking questions of your first party data. And so the reason you and I are talking about this is essentially their pitch is, hey, this growth in revenue and this projected sort of increase in valuation, a lot of it is through this natural language interface on top of all your data. It's not just about sort of warehousing the data, but it's like activating on top of that data. And a lot of like, okay, the example they gave is like find the overlap between high LTV users and TikTok followers. I'm like, wow, like that's a very marketing specific type of,
Oh, yeah.
use
To
case.
t to
Yeah,
be clear, though, this already exists. Like, you can already do this right now with Claude Code, and I think actually, as we connect this back to the start of the conversation, a really big thing that happened in the last month for me is I went from, like, kind of babysitting SQL querying to full on just, like, YOLOing SQL querying. Now just as an example, I'm working with a company where they have everything in GCP, and we're doing attribution analysis. And I'm going to write about this in a Substack coming up, so you'll be able to read it. But like, they want that very pretty attribution chart that shows here are my channels and here are it by platform. And even though we can say a lot about how useful that is, that's what they want. That's what everybody starts with. And in the past, like that would take a huge amount of time to figure out because you got to go figure out what are the tables,
Yep.
what's the schema for the table, what's the waterfall for attribution that the SDKs are using? Do we have our own attribution object? Okay, now kind of coalesce all this stuff, do some joins, check it, build a visualization software, maybe go and pull it into Hex and visualize it there. So like this is like a multi-day, multi-week process. And I was able to do this entire thing in like a casual weekend with Claude Code. And by weekend,
Yeah.
I mean like a couple hours where I was going downstairs and watching TV and giving agents 5 to 10 tasks. And the output was 10 different Pi notebooks with summarizations of what's happening and why, and the ability to validate it myself. So,
Okay,
like,
I have a
I can
question. I have a
totally.
question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, how many other people do like I know you can do this, I know I can do this. Do you think somebody at that company could do this themselves?
This is gets back to what we are talking about. I think if you're a software engineer at heart, or you understand APIs, HTML, and the language of web, you can do it if you have time. It still takes time, but you can do it. So your ability to act as like a pseudo data engineer exists. But you're right. How many people can act like that right now? Very, very
And so
few.
and so this is a really interesting point, right? Because a lot of what we do at work, marketing mix modeling, incrementality testing, causal inference, synthetic controls, the thing that I'm realizing is I could use Claude Code and Claude Cowork and all of these tools to do a lot of that work faster and better, right? And that's literally what our whole sort of thesis is. What I'm realizing is that 99% of marketers and marketing analytics people won't even know what question to ask the data
Yes.
to
Yes.
right, they don't have the vocabulary. And, and so it comes back to the education. And what I mean by this is like, I think every marketer, go-to-market person needs to get way more technical in how they sort of educate themselves on how the internet works, how marketing works, how statistics work. And if you can't do all of those things for yourself, like if you don't invest in your own education, you're going to get left behind because you won't know what questions to ask AI. You're going to be stuck at
Oh
simple
my gosh.
questions like, hey,
100%.
like summarize this thing for me, right? And so I'm like getting extremely bullish on EdTech. And the reason is, yeah, like there's a part of me which is like, okay, you can just go learn through these tools as well. You can, but again, it's the problem of like, I don't know what to learn. Like somebody has to structure the heck out of it. You see what I'm saying? So there
Yeah.
is a reckoning coming for, and hopefully a boom coming for EdTech, which every parent should be paying 50, 100, $500 a month for all the emerging ed tech platforms to get ahead of this and get your kids like that type of education. I don't know. I just feel like that's going to be a massive opportunity in the next like 5 years.
Dude, you hit it on the head so much. This is the reason why I'm also not worried about at least my own career. Like, I know a lot of people are freaking out about white collar work. If you are a specialist with domain expertise in an area, it doesn't matter if an LLM can do all of what you do. What matters is the ability to interpret what you do and to explain it to humans in a way and validate that what has been done is correct. For example, with this, this data product, Genie, if you don't know what questions to ask and you have no way to validate it, you're effectively giving up complete control of your company's strategy and the ability to have OKRs and goals to effectively AI, which, either means the founder doesn't need you or, you're going to be replaced. So
Yeah.
I just, I don't really buy the idea that these things are going to displace people. I think it's going to displace generalists who don't have specialist skills. But this is why, if you're an existing specialist and now you have a tool set that can help do your job 10x faster and you have the ability to interpret it, well, now you're able to just maximize your time, right?
Yep.
And it's so funny on the education piece. A similar debate has been raging around like, is upper education even useful anymore? Or like, why get an MBA? Why get special degrees? And I'm like, at the end of the day, what a lot of these programs do is teach you how to learn. That is the
Yeah.
ultimate goal of school, in my opinion, is to give you a great network of people and community that you have for the rest of your life, and to teach you that the process of learning is never over. A lot of people go and get degrees, whether they're from great schools or terrible schools, and they think that the work is done. That is just like that's like a poor behavior to learn. And I think in the age of AI, whether you have the tools structuring stuff for you or not, you still got to learn. Um,
Yeah. Very good point.
one thing though on EdTech, real quick, like, did we talk about this last week? I think Mark Andreessen talked about this in a podcast he did recently, where what's cool about this upcoming generation of AI is that you can imagine every student in the world could have their own private tutor to teach them. And I actually think like what's crazy to think about is you go to school and maybe you have teachers that are helping regulate the classroom and regulate what's being done
Mm.
and learned, but everybody has their own private tutor teaching them not only the required course material, but more. So you say, well, look, hey, AI agent 1, 2, 3 for Austin, like you got to teach Austin basic arithmetic and grammar and all this other stuff. And there's a set schedule we teach him. But hey, if he's curious about these other things, here are the bounds in which you can teach him. And you should start to like learn his personality and allow him to explore these other topics in a way that he feels comfortable with.
I'm going to give you a $10 billion idea. All right. Like, I genuinely believe this. And if somebody's building this, I want to invest, even though I have no money to invest because I'm a poor founder. I think you can build a $500 device. This is a custom Android tablet and a $500 or maybe even $1,000 a year subscription for a kid of any age. And this is a fully AI enabled tutor on your iPad. It has no entertainment and it's configured by the parent and the teacher, so their school teacher. And it's essentially a progressively, the same thing you do in lifting, right? You progressively increase the load. It's just progressively overloading based on the interests of that particular child. And that device and that subscription, I can't imagine any parent not paying for it. Like, it's a slam dunk idea in my head. And the reason you can't do this on top of an iPad, it can't be an app, it can't be on just the Play Store. And the reason is the moment you go onto a regular device, all the other distractions of social media and apps kill the value of this thing. So I think you can design an amazing product. And I know this has nothing to do with GTMN, but hey, here's a free idea. Maybe I will build it if this Paramark thing doesn't go too far. It will.
Let's take one of Paramark's deal and put it aside into a slush fund that we can go build this device for.
All right, let's go. We're gonna white code it this weekend. Fun times. All right, couple of other pieces of news before we wrap. Apparently, YouTube overtook Reddit as the most cited source in AI answers recently. So Gemini, ChatGPT are now prioritizing YouTube transcripts. I think we talked about it a couple of episodes ago. So get on YouTube if you're not on YouTube. Huge thing. And then the other one that's interesting is Reddit. Did you know that Reddit has Reddit Answers? Have you heard of this? This is like a conversational AI search tool. So you can go to
Mm.
Reddit and ask it a question on Reddit Answers, and that usage has gone from 1 million weekly active in Q1 of 2025 to 15 million in Q4. So basically a 15x surge. And, overall sort of search volume is up 30% year over year on Reddit. So it's becoming more and more of an answer engine, which is interesting. And maybe reflective of like where the future growth of that business might be coming from.
It's so hard. I love Reddit and I get like lots of joy, entertainment, and great answers out of it. But I also at the same time acknowledge that social media is like brain rot.
Yeah.
So like I've actually done this thing recently where I only give myself an hour a day to look at all social media. Like LinkedIn, Reddit. If somebody sends me something to read, I'll open it up and I'll allow myself to read it. But I'm not perusing feeds. I'm not watching chimp videos. I'm not looking up how to fix, stuff in my house. And I'm just allocating to like 1 hour at the end of the night to like kind of look at
Yeah.
everything, compress and all that. Because like otherwise it's just like, I don't know, I like lose hours of my day scrolling.
I agree, my friend. All right. On that note, if you are listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify or on iTunes, please give us a rating, a like, share it with somebody who you think might find this fun or valuable. We cover the latest news on all things go to market. And as you can tell, we're having a ton of fun. So 15 episodes in, we have a lot more to cover this year. I don't know where this will take us, but
We
Austin,
passed
thank you.
1,000 downloads.
What? 1,000? Really?
Yeah,
That's
I sent it to
incredible.
you.
Amazing. Amazing. I did see that we're getting some increased traction on YouTube as well. So it's a fun time. All right, everybody,
This has been great.
have a great
Fun week.
weekend. Yes, we'll do this
Happy
again next week.
Valentine's Day. Remember to get your wife something. And for
Mm,
other partners of both genders, remember to get your partner something because Valentine's Day is a two-way street.
Indeed. Indeed. Good reminder. Yes. Now my wife is on point. She has to figure out what to get me. I'm just kidding. All right. We'll see you all next week. Have a fun weekend.